Good afternoon. This is your Endgame, a webinar, an abbreviated version of a longer workshop that New Territory does with Canadian entrepreneurs, whether you're at the very early stages of entrepreneurship or the very late stages. Begin with your end in mind before you progress onto the next phase, whatever that might be. Think about what it looks like. I'm just leaving a little bit of time here. It is the lunch hour and people surely are running from meeting to meeting or clicking meeting to meeting. So we'll just give them a couple minutes and then we will get this show on the road. There is no reason why this webinar will need the full hour unless there's a lot of Q&A, but everyone will be given a little bit of time back in their day despite all of the value that will be packed into this webinar. So we'll just do one more minute and then we will get this show on the road. All right. As my friend Luke would say, we want to reward the people who show up on time and not those who are trailing a little bit behind us. So my name is Stephanie Ruth Grimbley. I am founder and principal of New Territory, where I like to say we help Canadian entrepreneurs get where they want to go. The important part, and definitely what we're going to be talking about today, is where do you want to go? What are you trying to achieve? By deciding that, you're going to be a whole lot more efficient and a whole lot more successful, getting great outcomes, even if they're not exactly what you intended. Of course, no one knows exactly what the future holds. Your preferences, tastes, and lifestyle, your situation will almost certainly change over the next 5, 10, 25 years. But by having a fixed endpoint in the future, one based on evidence, one that is integrated with your personal lifestyle objectives, the things that you want for your life, you can get more out of your business because it is going to be hard work. Entrepreneurship is nothing but it might as well be worth it. So, one of the ways that New Territory helps Canadian entrepreneurs get where they want to go is by using behavioral economics and psychology principles to basically gain an edge on our irrational human behavior. So what are those levers within our brain and our lifestyle, the systems that we rely on that we can pull in order to tip the scales in our favor? Behavior change is hard. Entrepreneurship is hard. It's all hard all the time. So how do we make it a little easier to do the things that will pay off more in the long run? And one of those things, speaking of the end game, is visualization, getting really clear, really detailed in why you're working so hard. What are you working so hard for? So I'm going to go first here and tell you a little bit about what my personal end game is. I like to refer to this as backwoods ballerina. I used to actually do ballet. I still love to dance. And when I picture myself in the future, hosting friends for dinners at my custom built cottage on a crystal clear Ontario lake, I imagine us doing a whole bunch of dancing. And so this is the end game for me, one that allows me to continue to do coaching and consulting and business ownership and operation, but with a little bit of a flexible lifestyle such that I can spend more time in the great outdoors, also living more often in the outdoors. And I'm going to need to fund that. Custom cottages don't come cheap. So what am I building? What's that end game for my business that is going to fund that end game for myself personally? That's the question that you are all here to answer today. But let's start with the personal why. Why do you need your business to achieve X, Y, and Z? What is going to keep you motivated? What do you get personally at the end? And this is really hard for people in general to think about because it is so far in the future and things will change and there's so much. This is actually a known about decisions. The more choices you have, the harder it is to actually make one. And so I'm going to help you with some prompts here. First of all, where are you? For me, the woods. But for you, maybe somewhere else. International, local, somewhere busy, somewhere quiet. Where do you feel your best? Where do you want to spend more time in your later years? Who are you with? What are you doing? What lights you up? For me, time spent on or near the water, playing sports, doing outdoors activities, of course, dancing. So, what do you love to do? I mentioned, who are you with? This could be people that are in your life today, or maybe people that you hope to be in your life in the future. And to really add some details to it, like what are you looking at in this end game vision for your life? What are you smelling? What are you touching and feeling? How are you feeling physically? Relaxed, strong, excited, content, stimulated? How are you feeling emotionally? Proud, relaxed, relief? Yeah, lots of different emotions that you could be feeling. And how far away is this for you? We all have different tastes in terms of how busy or not busy we want our later lives to be. So some might want to retire earlier and spend more relaxed time. For me, I will blend the two things together forever. There will never be a clear-cut retirement day. And so this future of mine may only be 5, 10 years from now and last the rest of my life. But for some of you, maybe you have huge ambitions. You want to have lots of grandkids and you want to constantly host them for big family dinners. Well, that's further in the future. So when do you want this end game to happen? So hopefully you've taken some time to imagine this for yourself. And the more detail you add, I encourage you to continue adding it, the easier it'll be to recall as you operate your business from day to day, as you face trials and tribulations that are certain to happen as an entrepreneur. That's why there is so much upside when you work for yourself. It's hard. Not everyone does it, but you are thinking about it, if not doing it already, and therefore, let's do it right. Keep yourself on track by thinking of that end game for your life personally. And of course, today we are going to speak about how to get closer to that end game by thinking about the end game for your business that funds that future or that operates in such a way that allows for that future, which is more in line with my vision I shared with you. So as we move forward in these notes here, yes, so some housekeeping. Some housekeeping. So this webinar is being recorded if you didn't already notice that. And as long as you registered and you're not just hopping on via the live stream on YouTube, then you will receive an email afterwards and you can watch this recording. You can ask questions via the chat at any time and I will get to them gradually. You will also need a pen and a few sheets of paper. We will do a couple exercises. And we don't want this to be scrap paper because these exercises, once you do them, you kind of want to keep them. So they should be a brand new blank slate piece of paper that you can use fully and that you will be more likely to keep and refer to over the long term. So grab pen and fresh pieces of paper now. And I probably don't have to tell you to grab your phone. It's probably sitting there right in front of you. You're probably holding it in your hand right now. You will want to snag this QR code. I will present it again at the end of the webinar, but this takes you to the complimentary value builder assessment. And as you answer these questions, you will reinforce the learning that you did here today. These are probably in many cases questions that you have not explicitly answered. Maybe you've pondered the question, but not really found an answer for. And some of these questions you've probably not answered or asked yourself ever before. And that in itself is valuable. But at the end, you will get a score across 8 characteristics of a business that have been known to increase the value of that enterprise. And it'll show you your score in comparison to industry averages. Now, how does it compare against industry average? It uses your North American Industry Classification System code. And so this is something that you would have used in your business registration, but you can also just go on to the NAICS website and search for your specific industry. It's a 6-digit code, and that's who you will be compared with against these assessments. And the best time to do this assessment is right after this webinar today. The second best time is anytime before you go to bed today. A couple of reasons why. You'll continue your learning. So you'll reinforce the things that you heard during the webinar today. As you answer those questions, they will mean even more to you. You will also be in a better position to remember what you learned and therefore answer those questions more accurately, giving you more accurate output and scoring. And it'll keep your momentum moving forward. Progress is one of the number one motivators to keep going, certainly when it comes to health and fitness goals. And we can play with that today too. Just by attending today, you've already taken a step in the right direction. You can complete the assessment today and take a second step in the right direction. Only takes 20 minutes, maybe 30 if you're really humming and hawing about the answers. By all means, take your time, but it needn't either. So that's housekeeping. Here's what we're here to do today. I have been serving mature owner-operated businesses for the last 7 years. I've been consulting them, working in the trenches, behind the scenes, seeing how they operate as a business and also seeing how owner-operators tick. And I know for sure just how much opportunity for improvement exists amongst the 1 million small businesses in Canada that are crucial to our economy and therefore our quality of life now in 2025 more than ever before. So yes, the opportunity is to make more money, but it's also to work smarter, not harder. Something that Canadians wear proudly on their proverbial chest, shoulder, what have you, is this hardworking mentality, which is excellent. But why not work hard at the right things so that you get more out of them? There's also, especially later on when we're a little bit over the idea of being the man and being the boss, maybe we want to spend a little bit more time with our family and our kids after years of sacrifice. Maybe we do want a little bit of an easier day-to-day work situation. Well, one path, many options, as you'll hear today. Bottom line, tons of opportunity to add value to your business and to your life. There is an abundance of attractive probabilities within your reach. That is why you should care and why hopefully you're here today. Not possibilities, but probabilities. The 8 value drivers that I will share with you today and explain what they are based in evidence. So this isn't like, what if I did all these amazing things and my business was amazing and everything was amazing? This isn't dreamland. This is follow these steps, adhere to these principles, and see the world open up for you and an abundance of opportunity within your reach. And I know you can't tell the future. It's going to be hard anyway. Nothing is promised, of course, but there are thousands of Canadian entrepreneurs who have come before you and who, like you, operated one, maybe two businesses ever and only really had one shot at selling or transitioning a business. And it was only then at the end that they really had the opportunity to think about what they wanted that to look like and how to maximize what that end result was. But with absolutely the minimal amount of runway to do that, they had the minimum amount of opportunity to capture. So thinking about it sooner is absolutely for the better. And of course, you've heard me talk about my time working with Canadian owner operators, the fact that Canadian small businesses are a huge and potentially much greater contributor to our economy and quality of life. I would like to double click on that particular subject matter. This isn't just about each of us getting rich and being able to live lavishly and enjoy lots of pleasures and enjoyment, all that life has to offer individually. This is also a matter of broader socioeconomic benefit. Small businesses represent half of Canada's economy, so half of GDP, and the vast majority of private sector jobs. This is important. If small businesses are not transitioning and continuing to grow with the next generation of managers, owners, employees, whoever, where will they work? So, small businesses, absolutely crucial already to our economy and quality of life. But if some of them were to actually capitalize on those abundant opportunities, the probabilities available to them within their reach, think about how much more value small Canadian businesses could be contributing. Unfortunately, Canadian entrepreneurs are becoming an endangered species. So many fewer Canadians are starting a business. And one stat I am unfortunate to have from, I believe, a BDC study is that even though we are 10 million more people in Canada now than at the turn of the millennium, we are 100,000 fewer entrepreneurs. And so this is actually something that I've adopted as my personal mission, which is to help 100,000 entrepreneurs, whether they be brand new and encouraged by the messaging that you're going to hear today, or existing entrepreneurs that are just going to do it bigger and better and create jobs for other Canadians. 100,000. That's how many I want to help by delivering this workshop, particularly providing the Value Builder assessment, certainly. Here's the thing. Those Canadian businesses that are sure to transition over the next 10 years, that are not being replaced as readily with new entrepreneurs, they're not getting rewarded all that well for all of that contribution to the economy and all those jobs that they do create. Unfortunately, most that do transition are being sold for less than $1 million. And $1 million might seem like a lot at the beginning of the road, but after you have dedicated half of your life to a business, it is not enough. It doesn't seem commensurate with the sacrifice and the attention to detail and the commitment involved. So that's Canadian businesses that actually do sell. Most don't. Most just simply close their doors, sell their machinery for, used market rate. It's not to say that these Canadian entrepreneurs didn't have rewarding careers, that they didn't capture value for themselves in the dividends they paid on top of a healthy salary and a whole bunch of other benefits along the way. But when you look at the sacrifice, the investment, and the risk, you can get similar outcomes without having that burden, that responsibility, and sleepless nights that come with entrepreneurship. It will be hard work, period, full stop. Set that expectation. Will it be worth it? Less than $1 million? Don't think so. And the thing is, more than $1 million, if you are a serious business that wants to employ other people, many millions are available to you with the right planning and execution. So, here are some real probabilities for business owners or entrepreneurs who want to set an end game for themselves personally and then think about how they get their business to a point where it can facilitate that personal goal. Owner does everything, custom cabinet maker, usually where we all start out as entrepreneurs. Best case scenario is that this owner, knowing that the talent that he needs are not going to be trained, at least not to his standard, in universities or even in colleges, and he needs them. He can't delegate to his existing employees forever because he won't grow. He can't continue to hire people who already have many, many years of experience because they're a shrinking talent base. So it's in his best interest to create a training system. And ultimately, that's part of the assets that come along with his business. And so he can sell to a large competitor and actually stay on, depending on his personal preference in terms of working, he can stay on and continue as that VP of talent development. So yes, he's a cabinet maker, but now he's created a secondary asset that's made his business even more meaningful to a buyer. He's also created a less risky, less stressful second half of his career for himself. What most Canadian entrepreneurs do, unfortunately, is they continue to do everything or almost everything themselves. They don't create the training system because it's a long-term investment, not an urgent need. And unfortunately, 25 years goes by in the blink of an eye, and this cabinet maker sells his assets for market value. Here's another example. Again, owner takes any referral from the key supplier that he uses. So he buys their technology and implements it with other small businesses and homes. We all have to take the business that comes to us in those early days. Usually we're bootstrapped or we're trying to, pay our overhead. We need to keep cash flow healthy. The ideal situation is that we're also capturing the data that comes along with those referrals, and then we're able to identify which of these referrals was actually most meaningful in terms of the customer segment, potentially the product or service we're offering, and therefore who we should be focusing our marketing and promotion efforts on, building systems around. And here we are, private equity that is going to roll up a bunch of different technology integrators wants this one specifically because they have such a strong niche that they can efficiently market to and profitably serve. Unfortunately, of course, most Canadian entrepreneurs, because they're hardworking and they're not afraid to do it themselves, put themselves in a less good position at the end of the road. They continue to take any referral, which means they're spending as much time on low value, potentially even negative value customers and opportunities that they could be spending on a virtuous cycle. And of course, at the end of the road, they might sell to a competitor, but it's only going to be for the next 12 months of pipeline deals from customers that are almost sure to come in. Last one, pet product distributor. I think you see the theme here. You see where I'm going with this. The owner is happy to distribute any product at any margin because she just needs sales. She needs a little bit of margin to pay the loan that she took on when she started this business. But with data and with a little bit of investment in the long game, thinking about her end game, she pivots to the high margin value add brands. So she makes a point of focusing on certain products and also how she adds value to those products as a distributor, which allows her to speak to other distributors and retailers on how to build a more profitable resell type business. So not only is she able to sell her business for a more attractive price, she has created a second career for herself, a sort of after effects where she can speak to her experience. But of course, we get busy and we don't know exactly where we're driving to. And so we just keep doing the same thing that we've always done. It requires the least amount of thinking. We stay busy doing that for 25 years and we sell for our 12-month sales pipeline, potentially at a discount, because who knows what the tariff announcement down south will be tomorrow. This is what thinking about an end game specifically and making those long-term investments is aiming to give you. That is options. So no, you don't have to sell your business. Many business owners and entrepreneurs, it's their quote baby. It's personal. They created it, they built it, they've grown it, they've invested, they've sacrificed for it. So it's hard to imagine letting that go. I just spoke yesterday with a woman who has been operating with her brother a CNC custom fabrication business for 40 years, most of her life. Her parents started it before they did. And they are currently humming and hawing, tug of war. Do we put a management team in place and operate it from a distance, still owning it? Or do we sell it and see it go into a new pair of hands? Something that they're only thinking about now, 40 years after the fact. So better to think about it earlier on, thinking about what options are available or could be available to you, and therefore which ones you would prefer. Get more reward for the risks you take as an entrepreneur. Learn from previous generations that were disappointed at the end to find out they only had maybe a couple $100,000 to cash in on by selling their used assets, and many times not even that much. This is what we're going to be thinking about when we're thinking about our end game. It's the 8 key value drivers. This has been decided. These 8 key value drivers were identified as increasing. When these are improved, so too is your enterprise value, the value of your business to a potential buyer, across 70,000 businesses globally. So this is a long-standing, known system for determining the value of your business based on market trends. So how well you score on each determines your value builder score. And important to note, this technology that I use, this system, is Canadian made and Canadian owned. So you can feel great using it. Driver number 1, we're finally into the mix here. Financial performance. Of course. How well does your business generate revenue and profits, and also keep records? How well is your accounting? So what is a financial buyer really buying? So you could sell to a competitor, which has a certain way of valuing your business, right? They want to sell, they want your customers because they also have a similar product and they integrate that in some way. But a financial buyer is just buying your business as it is today. And potentially, if it's private equity, maybe they're rolling it up. If you have an HVAC company, almost certainly, a dentistry, almost certainly, those are pretty uniform businesses and they might, in fact, roll them up into one. But bottom line, what they are buying is a future stream of profits. So how much profit? More the better, of course. But how reliable are those estimates? So maybe you've had some great years, but if it's only every like 3rd, 4th, 6th year that you have a banger year, and then everything else is kind of like modest, maybe even dips, that volatility or variability in your profitability is not attractive to any buyer, but especially a financial one. And so it's the predictability of future cash flows as well as their significance. It's actually better to have moderate profit consistently than to have highly volatile, but sometimes really extremely profitable years. So the less confidence, the lower the purchase price because it's a riskier investment. So I need to get a greater return for taking on that risk. Otherwise, I can just put my money in the stock market and call it a day and I don't have to work. So, driver number 2, growth potential. This has a lot to do with your industry and your position to capitalize on any growth that's happening in that industry, as well as the ability to sell more things to the same customers that you have and or acquire more customers. So this is the secret to scaling when it comes to growth. And this is another one that Canadian entrepreneurs don't do too well is we try to sell everything to everyone. Remember the pet product distributor? She took any margin from any manufacturer, or any product from any manufacturer and sold it, even if the margins were really low and there wasn't necessarily a huge demand for it. She just said yes to everything. The better way to scale, because you can create systems, including training systems for new employees, you can manage it better so it's less chaotic, so your lifestyle is more sustainable, is to pick the best product or service, or maybe a small collection of them, and sell it to many, many, many different customers. Driver number 3, the Switzerland structure. So why Switzerland? So this is about dependency of your business on any one aspect. So your employees, your customers, or your suppliers. And Switzerland is all about neutrality, right? And so the idea is that if you are dependent on a specific supplier and that supplier chooses not to fulfill your order before someone else, that's going to have downstream impacts on your customer satisfaction. Maybe you lose customers as a result of this supplier choosing someone else before you, increasing your lead times, for example. Potentially they even go out of business. Well, now what? How do you have a business if you don't have your one and only supplier? So you can switch suppliers. A good business is one that has many different suppliers you can choose. Not every business is going to be good at every single driver, but there are some drivers that you absolutely could improve on, and that's what we want to focus on. So maybe this does apply to your business, maybe not. Customers. No one customer should make up more than 15% of your revenue. Again, really important. Most businesses can absolutely think about diversifying, but if you are a defense manufacturer, you're selling to a federal government here and there. That is a challenging business model because you've got essentially one customer. That RFP is awarded to someone else. Who do you sell to for the next 5 years? Employees. This is probably the most likely focus of this value driver for Canadian entrepreneurs, and that is that they have one loyal, longtime employee that knows just how to put together the product or the service as well as the owner does, or almost as well as the owner does. But that employee could go anywhere at any time. And so, again, how do you make sure that new employees are around the corner or continuously being brought into the business and being trained so that if that employee was to leave or to become sick or have a lifestyle change that they can't control, what do? Do you spend 3 months of a huge dip in business until you can find the right person who can, nail it? Or do you take someone who's partially ready and upskill them in a few weeks with training in order to replace that long-time seasoned employee? That is probably the biggest area of opportunity for most Canadian businesses. And then, of course, diversifying your customer base. Valuation teeter-totter. How consistently is significant cash available in your business? So what this is really about is the more cash you need in order to create your product or service upfront in advance of any customer buying from you, and then in advance of them paying you for whatever they have purchased, the less valuable your business is, because there's a lot of risk there. The more cash you need and have to pay to acquire stuff, the more risk involved. So the fewer or less working capital. So for example, we used Uber many, many times over the last 25 years or however long they've been around as an example of a business that didn't need to buy all of its own cars, right? Didn't need to hire a whole bunch of employees. That would have been huge working capital costs, huge capital expense at the beginning for all of those assets, and then huge working capital costs to pay for all those employees to drive around. Instead, they don't have to own either of those two things, and they only pay when the customer pays. Reduced working capital means that you have a higher valuation. Here's even a better example. Any retail store, but the running room is our example here today, they have to pay for all of the shoes up front from the manufacturer. And so they are in debt to those manufacturers well in advance of anyone buying those shoes. And maybe no one ever actually does buy those shoes. I think we all know the Hudson's Bay story at this point in time. A lot of the debt that they had on their books was to the vendors and the manufacturers, the brands that sold them the clothes and the cookware and the bedding and all the other things that Hudson's Bay company sold. And not enough people were buying. So the more cash your business needs to operate, the less valuable it is. And there are ways to tip the scales so that your business is more valuable. Driver number 5, recurring revenue. Another one that a lot of businesses are not built around. They've been in business for a long time, and recurring revenue wasn't a common model for charging customers. A lot of CapEx expense, but technology, as we all know, has become operating expense. It's a subscription model as opposed to a one-off, buy the rotary phone, put it in, and call it a day for 15, 25 years. And the important thing to note here, although you might have returning customers, which is very valuable and definitely a data point that a buyer would want to see and know, really what we're talking about here is automatic. So contractual annuity-based revenue, something that a customer has to pay for until they actively turn it off and cancel that contract. So this has a significant impact on the value of a small business or any business. So if you are an installation business and you generate $1 million in one-time installations, compared to a monitoring business where you still have $1 million in revenue. So it's the same amount of revenue, but one is on a contractual basis where we put in your cameras and we monitor or our system monitors the security of your building for you, as opposed to just selling you the cameras for you to have and to hold forever and ever. Amen. Difference in value? More than double, because again, I don't know when the next time my past customers or future customers are going to pay for that installation service again. But if I have a contract and that contract is multiple months and years, well, then I know that I'm going to receive vast majority of the revenue that I expect. And of course, over the period of time, can increase the contract and increase that volume of revenue that I have a lot of confidence I will receive. Monopoly control. Small businesses are not monopolists by any means. Even medium and big businesses are not monopolists. But when we niche, we are a monopoly or in a category of one. If we are really specific, I have some business partners who are wealth managers across the board, but where they really specialize is real estate, and specifically real estate agents, ones that are more on the highest performing end of the scale. And these friends of mine, wealth managers, they really understand that lived experience of these real estate agents. They really understand the questions that they ask when they're determining whether or not to incorporate themselves. They understand the cash flow up and downs that they experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And therefore, they have a great story, they have a great service, and these real estate agents in that industry perpetually talk about them to their peers, their coworkers, et cetera. And so, no, my friends are not do not have a monopoly on wealth management, but they are in a category of one when it comes to wealth management for high performing real estate agents. And that's really what this is talking about. A virtuous cycle. So by differentiating in a specific way that's easy to remember and that you are able to provide compounding benefits or an additional edge against the competition for that particular niche, it will perpetuate. That cycle will continuously turn such that you can charge more for your services because you're adding more value. Potentially, your marketing is even more efficient, less costly because you are doing a great job and learning a lot about how best to reach that certain segment of the broader market. Here's an example that I think is really illustrative. You know, Apple has a huge percentage of the market and have for a while. Dell, same thing. So Panasonic, how dare they even consider entering the laptop market when we all seem to be very cozy and happy with the brands that we're already using? Well, they specifically went for a very specific niche and became a category of one based on durability. So these are first responders, potentially construction workers, et cetera, where they're in rough environments and they need a more robust, durable laptop so they can still use the applications and the technology and software that we all benefit in our jobs, but without the risk of them being beaten up, broken, and falling apart within, months of being in place. So Panasonic did not have a monopoly on all laptops, not by a long shot, but they identified an area that customers really cared about, or a certain category or segment of customers really cared about, and they doubled down on that. And of course, construction workers are going to talk to each other and recommend Panasonic. Police officers, et cetera, are going to use it and talk about it with other police officers. And that idea of Panasonic is a durable product is going to be a virtuous cycle, more business, less marketing effort, higher prices. Driver number 7, customer satisfaction. This is actually where I began my consulting journey. I actually still believe and know that by talking more frequently as an automatic practice, as a standard operating procedure with your customers, is a great way to identify opportunities for improvement. So what are we not doing all that great today in our current pursuit, but also new opportunities that we could offer. And by doing this on a regular basis, you're ahead of the game. So you're capitalizing on these opportunities before your competition. So how likely your customers are to buy from you or refer others to you depends heavily on how satisfied they were in the first place. And this is the thing. How do you know your customers are satisfied? You cannot rely on your memory. Depending on who you are, your personality, you could be optimistic and very sure of yourself and remember all the times customers praised your services and your people. And that's great. I'm glad that they did. But they will definitely influence and skew your understanding of how satisfied all of your customers are. And perhaps there is a large segment of customers that might buy more from you, might refer more people to you if you were to identify the areas where they're not so satisfied. So you have to ask A lot of Canadian business owners are not actually asking, they're not systematically measuring this. I know no one wants to fill out the survey. It takes forever to get enough people to fill out a survey such that you can actually conclude things, which is why if we do it every day as we're serving customers over the course of 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, certainly fewer years than you plan to operate your business, you do have a collection of data that is extremely valuable that your competitors probably don't have. Last driver, potentially one of the most important ones, hub and spoke. How dependent is your business on a day-to-day basis on your personal involvement? Do you do 50% of the work for your business and you assign ticky-tacky, simple administrative paper pushing tasks to a few junior employees? Depending on the stage of your business, the older your business is, the more established you are, the more you should have delegated at this point. I like to think that an entrepreneur's job is to create jobs for other people, not themselves. So you want to be the hub, and you don't want to be the hub. This is usually what happens, is that the business owner starts off, the examples I gave at the beginning, starts off doing everything themselves because it is just them. So of course their customers know them personally and they know their customers by name. But over time, as they add employees, as they add suppliers, the best thing an owner can do is start to transition old, but even just make sure that the new relationships that are formed are with these new employees and not with the owner themselves. It'll be harder and harder to escape the longer you wait to delegate responsibility to your employees. And if you are the business, if the relationships, the customer satisfaction, the supplier relationships, if they all rely on the owner or are all including the owner, well, then it's going to be a heavy, heavy discount on that business for someone buying it where the owner is removed from the equation. You got to start removing yourself from the equation, at least the day-to-day operating equation, in order to show a future buyer that it's a valuable business for them to operate as well. This is called the traditional owner trap. Canadian entrepreneurs everywhere are in this. This is why they work so hard, because they do everything. And it feels in the moment right to do that, especially because that's how we started. We started from a position of scarcity. We started from a position of no customers, no suppliers, no brand awareness. And so there was just so much to do. And we got busy early and we stayed busy forever. If there's one thing that you take away from today in terms of how to transition your business to something that is more valuable and that will help fund your future life, it is delegate. So those pieces of paper that I had you grab, this is the first exercise. I would like you to write down 3, maybe 4 of the most time-consuming workday tasks. These are tasks that happen on a regular basis, and maybe they're not necessarily part of your operations, but for example, shipping issues. So shipping is a thing that happens all the time that maybe some of your employees are responsible for. But if there was a shipping issue, which happens maybe monthly, quarterly, who would handle it? Would it be you? Maybe it should be your employees in the future. So current consuming tasks on the left-hand side. And then also, as you think about where you're trying to get your business, future tasks. What new tasks are you planning to introduce into the business? Those are great opportunities to delegate because they're new to you too. They're new to the business owner, the entrepreneur, as much as they are to the employee. So any new tasks, they should be going directly to employees, skipping over the owner entirely. Once you have, and remember, you have this recording, so you can do these exercises later as well. in the interest of time, making sure everyone gets back to their regularly scheduled activities by 1 o'clock. Once you have those activities, those time consuming tasks, you can actually identify who you might delegate these to tomorrow, in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months, right? Do you have a forecast for revenue, for sales? Do you have a pipeline of customers that you expect to close at certain times? Okay, who's going to manage those projects once they close? Are they closing in 6 months? Who is that person? So thinking about some milestones that are in your near future and who's going to be around. Maybe it's not even an employee. Maybe it is a service provider. Are you planning on adding some social media accounts and getting your customers' attention through social media? Is it going to be you managing that? That is an enormous amount of time. Get yourself an agency, get yourself an independent contractor who does this all day, every day, and delegate that to them. So imagine your future self. Don't you love them? Aren't they a loved one? Do this for them. This any investment you make today, just like going to the gym, is not, well, actually, it is going to immediately benefit you, especially the delegation in the short term, for example. And when you go to the gym, you work out, your heart rate increases, your brain functions better, you feel more relaxed, less stressed, so you do get some short-term benefits. But the person who is going to benefit the most from the hard work you do today and the work smarter activities you implement today is your future self, someone who I think you care about and want to see thriving when the time comes. So I want you to write yourself a thank you letter. This is your future self, the person who gets to enjoy that awesome end state of your life that you're dreaming. So my future self in 10 years, in her late 40s, almost 50, and she is thriving. She could not be happier, healthier, more enriched and stimulated in her life and career. Holy shit, is she thankful for all the hard work that present me is putting in today. And that's the letter I would like you to write. So essentially writing from that future person to your present self. Thank you for putting in the hard work. Thank you for delegating those tasks. Thank you for doing all those things because we grew the business 20% year over year for 5 years. Thank you because we had a private equity group buy it for $10 million 5 years later. And I could not have imagined that being true otherwise. Writing this letter from your future self to your present self is a way to tap into the motivation that comes from doing things for other people. I know, not to say all parents do this, but let's focus just on moms for the moment. It was recently Mother's Day. And think about when a woman gets pregnant and suddenly it's easy to stop drinking. Suddenly it's easy to stop drinking coffee. Maybe not easy, but you're certainly more successful at cutting those things or minimizing those things in your diet than you would be if it was only you were considering. So we're tapping into that by thinking of your future self as a loved one that you want to give great things to in their time is a way to keep you motivated today when the road is tough. So highly recommend writing yourself a letter. But here are the absolute next steps that everyone should complete, because you've already taken the first step by getting this far. You might as well take these next steps and push your momentum and your progress that much further. First, that thank you letter, write it, and then put it up where you can see it. Put it on the fridge, put it on your cork board, put it on your bedside table, put it somewhere where you can see it, maybe in the back of a cabinet door in your bathroom, so that you are consistently reminded of the visualization of that future state, that future lifestyle that your future self gets to enjoy, that you yourself want to have. Remember the promises and commitments that you made around delegation. Remember that there are smarter ways of working, and there is an abundance of probabilities within your reach. Put that thank you letter somewhere where it will remind you of all of these things on a daily basis. Second, and potentially one of the most important things that I hope everyone takes advantage of, is the Value Builder Assessment. This is Canadian technology, and it is extremely valuable. It will give you more clear-cut, specific areas in your business to work on and an idea of the return on investment of all of that corporate development or change management that you have to go through. I'm going to hold it here for a few more seconds. Of course, this is recorded, so you can find this QR code very easily in the future. You can also email me if that is your preference, srg@newterritory.ca. And actually, even better, book your complimentary one-on-one scenario planning session. Once you've done the Value Builder Assessment, it will tell you where you are today against those 8 value drivers compared to your industry, and you'll be able to see where you have the greatest room for improvement. Look for the little yellow star beside the drivers that have the greatest potential. But there's also more features and functionalities that we can work through together, such as the scenario tool that allows us to actually slide these value drivers up. So if I improve this value driver or I improve that other value driver, then how much is my business worth? We can actually get to a dollar figure if your business is mature enough, if you've got enough revenue and profitability over enough years. But we can also play around with those numbers as hypotheticals. So what revenue do you expect to generate over the next 2, 3, 5 years? And we can see what those numbers would give you in terms of the value of your business. Thank you so much for participating in this wild ride. I know it was a lot of information we packed into 1 hour. Please complete the assessment. It is going to be the next best thing you do for yourself after delegating those tasks. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks so much for joining me.